The lantern swung once, twice. The light found her face. She was small, 9, maybe 10 at most. Filthy blonde hair matted against a swollen cheek, one eye shut tight, purple-black. The other watched him. No fear left in it, just the flat stare of something that had already died inside. Iron around her ankle, chain bolted to the wall beam, 3 feet of it, no more. Silas Kane stood there, 58 years of carefully built armor cracking in his chest. "What's your name, child?" Her lips barely moved. 2 words, whispered like a bullet she'd been saving. "Brennan, Eliza Brennan." The lantern slipped in his hand. His knees hit the dirt floor, expensive wool trousers in the filth, and he didn't feel it. Couldn't feel anything but the sound of that name ricocheting through 30 years of silence. There are debts a man can't outrun, not with 40,000 acres, not with 3 decades, not with all the gold in the Powder River Valley. October 28th, 1895, 3 days earlier, dawn came cold over the Powder River Valley. The kind of cold that made a man's breath hang in the air like unspoken truths. Silas Kane sat his horse on the ridge above his empire, 40,000 acres of Wyoming grassland, stretching to the mountains. Cattle dotted the plains below, dark shapes against ochre grass gone dry with autumn. His herd, his land, his carefully purchased solitude. He was 58 years old and looked it. Silver beard trimmed precise as a Denver banker's, weathered face that hadn't smiled in so long the muscles had forgotten how. Blue eyes like winter sky, clear, cold, empty. He wore an expensive 3-piece suit under his leather duster, boots polished despite the dust. A man who'd crawled up from nothing and dressed every day to prove it. Cole McCready rode up beside him, younger by 2 decades, loyal as a hound. Ex-Confederate, no family, nowhere else to go. Silas had hired him when no one would, and Cole had never forgotten. "Fence line solid, boss." "Replace the posts by Willow Creek." Silas nodded. Pulled a small leather journal from his coat, made a notation. Always accounting, always measuring value. Cattle count? Shy by 12 head. Probably drifted north toward the Lakota camp. Let them have it. Silas's voice was flat, businesslike. 12 heads cheaper than trouble. Cole studied him. "You feeling all right? You've been awful quiet this morning." "I'm quiet every morning." Quieter than usual, I mean." Silas didn't answer. He was staring at something down the slope. An old, burned-out homestead. Stone chimney standing like a grave marker. Some settler family had tried to make it 5 years back. Didn't last one winter. The land was beautiful and merciless in equal measure. He touched his heels to the horse and rode down. The cabin was gone. Just charred timbers and broken dreams. Silas dismounted, boots crunching on frost-brittle grass. Something caught his eye in the dirt. A child's toy. A wooden horse, hand-carved, one leg broken off. He picked it up, turned it over in his gloved hands. Cole pulled up behind him. "Boss?" Silas stood there holding that broken toy. And for a moment something flickered behind his eyes. Something old and sharp and quickly buried. "You ever think about the past, Cole?" Cole shifted in his saddle. The question made him uncomfortable. "No, sir. Ain't no profit in it." Silas nodded slowly, set the toy back in the dirt where he'd found it. "You're right. Let's ride." But he didn't move for another breath. 2, 3. The wind picked up, carrying the smell of sage and distant snow. That evening, the ranch house. The house was too big, 14 rooms for one man, high ceilings that swallowed sound. Imported furniture from San Francisco that no one sat on. A dining table that could seat 20, set every night for one. Silas ate alone in silence. Beefsteak, potatoes, coffee black as tar. Mrs. Chin, his housekeeper, served and disappeared like a ghost. She was Chinese, 50-something, spoke little English but understood everything. She'd been with him 10 years and knew better than to make conversation. After dinner, he sat in his study with account ledgers spread before him. Numbers, clean, honest. They never asked questions or expected answers. A knock. Cole in the doorway. "Boss, the Lakota folks near the North Ridge. Red Hawk says there's been movement in the old line shack up by Broken Pine. Thought you should know." Silas looked up. "Movement? Smoke. Someone bedding down there. Drifters? Probably. Want me to check it tomorrow?" Silas considered. The line shack was abandoned, hadn't been used in 3 years. Let them be unless they steal. Cole nodded, started to leave, then paused. Red Hawk seemed bothered by it. Said something about spirits being restless. You know how he talks. "I don't believe in spirits." "I know, boss, just passing it along." After Cole left, Silas sat in the lamplight, an oil lantern on his desk, flames steady and golden. He stared into it longer than necessary, the way a man stares at a fire when his thoughts are somewhere else entirely. The spirits are restless. Damn superstitious nonsense. He closed the ledger, poured 2 fingers of whiskey, didn't drink it, Just watched the lamplight play through amber liquid, making shadows dance on mahogany. The next morning, the Lakota camp. Silas rode to the edge of his property where the Lakota families camped. 15 people, mostly women and old men. The young warriors were long gone, scattered to reservations or graves. These were the ones with nowhere else to go. He let them stay in exchange for seasonal work. It was business, not charity. He told himself that every month when he paid their wages. Chief Red Hawk sat outside his tent, 70 years old, face like carved cedar, eyes that had seen too much and forgotten nothing. He watched Silas approach with the patience of stone. Silas dismounted, pulled an envelope from his coat. Monthly payment, $40. Red Hawk took it without counting. The spirits are restless, Kane. So Cole mentioned. Old debts are stirring. Silas's jaw tightened. I don't believe in spirits, Chief, and I don't owe any debts. Red Hawk smiled, sad, knowing. They believe in you, and debt believes in itself. Silas swung back into the saddle. If someone's squatting in that shack, they can stay the winter. Just tell them not to steal. Some things can't be stolen, Kane. They come back on their own. Silas rode away, Red Hawk's words following like smoke. October 29th, Don Cole found him in the barn at first light, saddling his own horse. I'll check that line shack today, Silas said. Want me to come with? No. Keep the men on the south fencing. Cole handed him something, the oil lantern from the tack room. It's a 2-hour ride. You'll need this if you stay past dusk. Silas took the lantern, held it. The weight felt strange in his hand, heavier than it should be. Boss, you sure you're all right? Silas looked at his foreman, this man who'd followed him for 8 years, who'd never asked where he came from, or why he lived like a hermit king in an empty castle. No, Silas said quietly, but I will be. He rode north into country he rarely visited anymore. The land grew rougher, pine forests closing in, grass giving way to rock. The old line shack sat in a hollow where Broken Pine Creek ran dry most of the year. Smoke had been rising from it yesterday, none today. He tied his horse 50 yards out, walked the rest on foot, boots careful on pine needles, lantern unlit in his left hand. The shack leaned like a drunk against the wind. Door half off its hinges. He'd meant to tear it down years ago, never got around to it. Some things you leave standing, because tearing them down means admitting they existed. He pushed the door open, darkness inside, smell of earth and rot, and something else. Something human and afraid. He struck a match, lit the lantern. The light swung once, twice, and found her face. She was so small that darkness had almost swallowed her whole. Silas stood in the doorway, lantern raised high, light spilling across rotted floorboards. The shack was maybe 12 feet square, big enough for 2 men to sleep during calving season, nothing more. Walls chinked with mud gone to dust, broken window letting in October wind. And in the corner, chained to a support beam like an animal, a child. His first thought was that she was dead. She sat too still. But then her eye moved. Just the one, tracking the lantern light. The other eye was swollen shut, bruised the color of a 3-day-old corpse. Purple-black, yellow at the edges. Jesus Christ, the words came out before he could stop them. He never prayed, hadn't in 30 years. But looking at her, something old and broken stirred in his chest. He stepped inside. Floorboard creaked under his weight. She flinched. Just barely. A rabbit that's learned not to run, because running brings worse pain. Easy, child. I'm not going to hurt you. She didn't believe him. He could see it in that one open eye. Flat, dead. The kind of nothing that comes after too much of something. He knelt slowly, expensive wool trousers soaking up dirt and God knew what else. Set the lantern between them. In its glow he could see her whole, 9 years old, maybe 10. Blonde hair, so matted with filth it might have been brown. Flour sack dress torn at the shoulder. Arms thin as kindling, bare feet crusted with dried blood, and the chain. Iron shackle around her left ankle, maybe 2 pounds of it. Bolted to the wall beam with a 3-foot length of chain. Professional work, not makeshift. Someone had done this with tools and intention. His hands curled into fists. Who did this to you? She didn't answer, just watched him with that terrible nothing stare. He looked around the shack, a tin cup on its side. Empty plate with ants crawling on it. Tattered blanket that might have been gray once. Someone had been keeping her here. Feeding her just enough to keep breathing, not enough to keep hoping. Where are they? The ones who put you here? Her voice came out rusty, like a hinge that hadn't moved in months. They come back. They always come back. When? Don't know. Days, sometimes weeks, she paused. You one of them? The question hit him harder than it should have. No, child, I own this land, this shack. I didn't know anyone was... He stopped. Didn't finish. Couldn't. He examined the shackle, the kind you'd use on a prisoner or slave. In 1895, Wyoming Territory, neither was legal. But there were men who didn't care much about legal. I'm going to get this off you. I need tools. I'll be back in 20 minutes. I promise. She said nothing. She'd heard promises before. He stood, shrugged out of his leather duster, draped it over her shoulders. It swallowed her, collar up past her ears, sleeves hanging empty. She pulled it tight with shaking hands. I'll be back, he said again. Everyone says that. Her voice was so small, so certain. It stopped him at his door. I keep my word, child. Always have. Then you ain't like most people. He rode hard back to the barn, found Cole working on tack. I need bolt cutters, big ones, and a blanket, clean water, now. Cole looked up, saw something in Silas's face he'd never seen before. Boss, now Cole. 10 minutes later, he was riding back with a wool blanket, canteen, and the heavy cutters they use for fence work. His horse sensed his urgency, took the trail faster than was smart in broken country. When he pushed back into the shack, she was exactly where he'd left her, still wearing his coat. Still waiting with that flat, dead patience. He knelt beside her, set down his supplies. This is going to make a loud noise. Don't be scared. I ain't scared of noise. He positioned the cutters around the chain, 3 inches from the shackle, squeezed. The handles bit into his palms. The chain was thick, industrial grade, built to hold a grown man, built to hold a child who weighed maybe 60 pounds. He squeezed harder, shoulders straining, jaw set. The chain resisted, snap. The sound cracked through the shack like a gunshot. The severed chain fell to the floor with a dull clank. She stared at her ankle. The shackle still circled it. He'd need a blacksmith to get that off, but the chain was gone. For the first time in however long she'd been here, she could move more than 3 feet. She didn't move, just sat there, staring like she couldn't believe it was real. I'll get the rest off back at my house. Got a forge there. For now, he uncapped the canteen. You need a drink. She took it with both hands, shaking so hard water sloshed, drank like she'd been crossing a desert. Too fast. Easy, slow. She stopped, wiped her mouth with the back of her hand, looked at him with that one good eye. Why? Why what? Why help me? You don't know me. He didn't have an answer, not one he could say out loud. So he told her a truth instead, because no child should be chained in the dark. She considered this. Then, so quietly he almost missed it. Thank you. Those 2 words nearly broke him. He picked up the blanket, thick wool, smelled like horses but clean, and wrapped it around her. She clutched it like armor. What's your name, child? Long silence. She watched his face, searching for something. Eliza? Eliza what? Another pause, longer. She was deciding something, whether to trust, whether it mattered. Her lips barely moved. Brennan. The name hit him like a fist to the chest. The lantern wavered in his grip. The shack tilted, or maybe the world did. Sound rushed in his ears. Wind, heartbeat, the ghost of a woman's voice saying, I'm pregnant, Silas. What are we going to do? Brennan. His voice came out strangled. Sarah Brennan's. And she nodded, confused by his reaction. Sarah Brennan, dead 30 years. The woman he'd loved for 3 months and abandoned for a cattle fortune. The woman who died giving birth to his child. A daughter he'd never met, never claimed, never even asked about. And this child, this broken chain child, his knees gave out. He sat back hard, bolt cutters clattering from his hand. Your grandmother, Sarah Brennan? I never knew her. She died when Mama was born. Your mother? He could barely form the words. What was her name? Mary Brennan. Past tense. She died 6 months ago, tuberculosis. The math was ice water down his spine. Sarah's baby, grown, dead. And this child was all that remained of a love he'd buried under 30 years of gold. He'd thought he could outrun it. The debt, the shame. But here she sat, wearing his coat, staring at him with Sarah's eyes. Mister? She said. You look sick. He couldn't speak, could barely breathe. After a long moment, he stood on shaking legs, bent down, picked her up, blanket, chains, shackle and all. She weighed nothing, less than nothing, a ghost made solid. She stiffened in his arms. I'm taking you somewhere safe, he managed. Where? My home. Am I going to die? The question, asked so calmly, so certain, nearly destroyed him. His voice cracked. Not while I'm breathing. She studied his face in the lamplight. Then, slowly, she let her head rest against his shoulder, first warmth she'd felt in months. He carried her out into October sunlight. The wind had picked up, carrying the smell of coming snow. His horse waited, patient. He wrapped her tighter in the blanket, one-armed, and lifted her into the saddle. Climbed up behind her. She leaned back against his chest, so small, so broken. As they rode down the trail toward the ranch, she whispered against the wind, What's your name? Mister? He should have lied. Should have given her any name but his own. Silas, he said. Silas Kane. She went very still. My mama mentioned that name once, before she died. His heart stopped. What did she say? Long silence. Then, that you were the ghost who made her. Same day. Afternoon. The ranch hands stopped working when they saw Silas ride in with a child wrapped in a blanket across his saddle. Word spread fast in small kingdoms. By the time he reached the house, Mrs. Chen was already at the door, face unreadable. Draw a bath, Silas said, dismounting carefully. Hot water. Clean clothes if we have any that'll fit. Send for Doc Farrow. Mrs. Chen looked at Eliza, the swollen eye, the iron shackle, the dirt, and nodded once. No questions. She disappeared into the house. Cole appeared from the barn, face tight with concern. Boss, what the hell? Later. Silas carried Eliza up the porch steps. Right now I need you to ride to town. Bring Doc Farrow. Tell him it's urgent. Silas. Go. Cole went. Inside, the house was warm. Too warm after the cold ride. Eliza's good eye went wide, taking in the high ceilings, the imported furniture, the paintings on walls. A palace compared to a shack with chains. You live here? Her voice was small. Alone? Yes. That's sad. The observation, delivered so simply, cut deeper than she knew. Mrs. Chen returned, beckoned. Bath ready. This way, child. Eliza looked at Silas, uncertain. It's all right, he said. Mrs. Chen will help you. I'll be right outside. You promise? I promise. She let Mrs. Chen lead her away, blanket trailing behind her like a cape. Silas stood in the hallway, listening to the sound of water, soft voices in Cantonese and English mixing. When Eliza cried out, startled by hot water on the ankle wound, his hands clenched. An hour later, Doc Farrow arrived, black bag in hand. He was 60, white-bearded, seen everything twice. He examined Eliza in the guest room while Silas waited in the hall like an expectant father. Finally, the doctor emerged, closing the door softly behind him. Malnutrition, dehydration, bruising across her back and ribs, week-old. That eye needs poultices, but it'll heal. The ankle... He paused. Whoever shackled her knew what they were doing. Infection setting in. I cleaned it, wrapped it. She'll need the iron cut off soon or she'll lose the foot. I'll take her to the blacksmith tomorrow. Doc Farrow studied him. Silas, where'd you find this child? My land, old line shack up by Broken Pine, and the people who did this? I'm finding out. The doctor knew better than to push. She'll live, if she's fed and kept warm. Maybe see a real smile someday, God willing. He picked up his bag. Who is she to you? Silas's jaw worked. Family. Didn't know you had any. Neither did I. Evening, Eliza sat in the guest room, clean for the first time in months. Mrs. Chen had found a dress that almost fit. Too big in the shoulders, too long in the sleeves, but clean. White cotton, with small blue flowers. Hair braided, face scrubbed. She looked almost like a normal child. Almost. The swollen eye and iron shackle told different stories. Silas knocked softly. Can I come in? She nodded. He sat in the chair by the window, leaving space between them. How do you feel? Warm. She said it like a miracle. Are you hungry? Always. Mrs. Chen brought soup, beef broth, soft bread, nothing heavy. Eliza ate slowly at first, then faster, then too fast. Easy, Silas said. It'll make you sick. She stopped, wiped her mouth. Sorry, I forget sometimes. Forget what? That there might be more. The casual acceptance of starvation made his chest tight. Eliza... He leaned forward, elbows on knees. I need to ask you some questions about how you ended up in that shack. Her face went flat. You gonna send me back? No, never, but I need to understand. And she pulled the blanket, his wool blanket. She wouldn't let Mrs. Chen take it, tied her around her shoulders. Mama died in May. Tuberculosis. We lived in Cheyenne, in a boarding house. She owed money, lots of it. Doctor bills, rent, food. How much? $340. A fortune to a seamstress, nothing to a man like Silas. When she died, men came with papers, said the debt passed to me, said I had to work it off. No work how? Sewing at first, in a factory. But I was too slow, kept making mistakes. They said I was costing them money. She touched her swollen eye without thinking. So they sold me. Silas's hands gripped the chair arms. Sold you. To railroad contractors, men named Gant and Pike. They said I'd do laundry for the work camps, pay off the debt in 10 years. You're 9 years old. I know, said so simply. But Mama's dead, and I'm what's left. The They brought me here 3 weeks ago. Said they'd come back when they had work. Chained me so I wouldn't run. She looked at him with that terrible ancient wisdom. I wouldn't have anyway. Where would I go? Before Silas could respond, Cole appeared in the doorway. Boss, we got a problem. Silas stepped into the hall, closed the door behind him. The men who owned her, Cole said quietly. Labor contractors working for Union Pacific. They filed papers in town this morning. Legal complaint. Theft of contracted labor. She's a child, not property. Territorial contract law says different. Debt inheritance. It's ugly, but it's legal. Who's backing them? Judge Thatcher. He's reviewing the papers now. Silas's face went cold. Oswin Thatcher, circuit judge, hard as railroad iron, believed law was law regardless of morality. When? They want a hearing tomorrow. Send a messenger. Cole pulled an envelope from his coat. This came an hour ago. Silas tore it open. Official summons, territorial court, 10 o'clock. Bring the girl? What are you going to do? Cole asked. Silas stared at the paper. 30 years he'd been untouchable. Money, land, power, all of it worthless now, because a child said one name and the past rose from the grave. I don't know yet. Boss, if you keep her without legal claim, you'll lose everything. The ranch, your reputation. They'll call it kidnapping. I don't care. You should. They'll send federal marshals. Silas crumpled the summons in his fist. She's my blood, Cole. Can you prove it? Silence. That's what I thought. Night Silas found Eliza by the fireplace in the main room, unable to sleep. She was holding the oil lantern he'd used to find her, watching the flame dance. He sat beside her on the floor, back against the stone hearth. No words for a long moment. Does it ever go out? She asked. The flame? She nodded. Not if you feed it. Will you keep feeding it? He looked at her. This child who was Sarah's blood, who was his fault, who was maybe the only real thing he'd done in 30 years. Yes? Forever? As long as I'm able. She set the lantern between them, carefully, like placing a sacred object. Mama used to say light's the only thing that keeps the dark from winning. Your mama was smart. She was sad mostly, but yeah, smart too. They sat in silence, fire crackling, wind outside, the lantern burning steady between them. Kane? Yes? What's going to happen to me? He wanted to lie, to promise safety, but she'd had enough lies. I don't know yet, child, but I'm going to do everything I can to keep you safe. Oh, why? You don't even know me. Because I knew your grandmother. Because I loved her and ran from her and she died because of it. Because you're the debt I can't pay but have to try. Because it's right, he said instead. She considered this, then quietly, nobody ever did right by me before. Then it's past time someone did. A knock at the door, late, past 9. Silas rose, hand instinctively going to the rifle above the mantel. Cole opened it before Silas could. Red Hawk stood in the doorway, moonlight behind him, face carved from shadow. I know who that child is, the old man said. Silas's jaw set. Come in. Red Hawk entered, moved like smoke, sat cross-legged by the fire, without invitation. Eliza watched him with wide eyes. I was here, Red Hawk said, 30 years ago, spring of 1865. I saw Sarah Brennan crying in the snow after you left. Silas closed his eyes. She died, giving birth. The daughter lived. Barely. I helped the midwife. That child grew up, had a child of her own. He looked at Eliza. You. How do you know? Silas's voice was rough. I know what I know. Spirits don't forget. Blood remembers itself. Will you testify in court? Red Hawk smiled, sad. White man's court won't believe an old Indian, but I'll try. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. The spirits are patient, Kane. They waited 30 years. They'll wait to see what you choose. What choice? The law or the child? Your empire or your soul? Red Hawk stood. Choose wisely. Some debts can only be paid once. He left as quietly as he'd come. Eliza looked at Silas. What did he mean? Silas stared into the fire, watching shadows dance. He means tomorrow I find out who I really am. October 30th, 1895. Morning Judge Oswin Thatcher's office smelled like leather and tobacco, and the kind of certainty that came from 30 years behind a bench. He sat at his desk like a king at court, gray-bearded, hard-eyed, papers spread before him with the precision of a man who believed law was the last thing standing between civilization and chaos. Silas stood across from him, hat in hand. Behind him, 2 men in dirty work clothes, Gant and Pike, the labor contractors. A territorial marshal leaned against the wall, badge catching lamplight. Eliza had stayed at the ranch. Silas wouldn't bring her to this. Mr. Kane? Thatcher's voice could have cut glass. Thank you for coming. Let's keep this simple. You removed a child from your property who was under legal contract to these gentlemen. That constitutes theft of bonded labor. She's 9 years old, chained like an animal. The law doesn't specify age for debt inheritance. It specifies contract obligation. Thatcher tapped the papers. Mary Brennan died, owing $340. The debt passed to her surviving dependent. Mr. Gant and Mr. Pike paid that debt in full and hold a 10-year labor contract. Territorial Contract Law 1882, all legal. Gant leaned forward, grinning around tobacco-stained teeth. We fed her, didn't we? Kept her alive. That's more than her whore mother did. Silas moved so fast the marshal's hand went to his gun. But Silas just stepped closer, voice dropping to something cold and final. Say that word again. See what happens. Gentlemen, Thatcher's palm hit the desk. Mr. Kane, control yourself. Mr. Gant, measure your words. Gant shrugged, still grinning. Thatcher continued. The facts are simple. Unless you can demonstrate familial claim, blood relation, or legal guardianship, the child must be returned to fulfill her contract. She's a child, not property. Under territorial law, she is both. Do you have familial claim, Mr. Kane? The room went quiet. Outside, a wagon rattled past. Someone laughed in the street. Silas's hands tightened on his hat brim. I knew her grandmother. Thatcher raised an eyebrow. Knew? Sarah Brennan, 1865. Something shifted in the room's temperature. How well did you know her, Mr. Kane? 30 years. He'd spent 30 years building walls around this moment, stone and gold and careful distance, all of it crumbling now. Well enough, Pike laughed. Sharp, ugly sound. He's claiming he tapped the grandmother? That's rich. The marshal pushed off the wall. Pike? What? He thinks he can buy the girl by saying he knew her dead granny? Thatcher held up a hand, looked at Silas with something like curiosity. Are you claiming paternity, Mr. Kane of Mary Brennan? The question hung in the air like gun smoke. Silas's throat was dry. He'd faced down rustlers, winter storms, financial ruin. None of it compared to this, to saying out loud what he'd buried for 3 decades. I'm claiming I should have. That's not an answer. It's the only one I've got. Thatcher leaned back in his chair. Then you have no legal standing. Case closed. Wait, the voice came from the doorway. Red Hawk stood there in his worn buckskins and beaded vest, face carved from weather and time. He moved into the room like a ghost no one could quite see. I was there, he said. Spring, 1860. I saw them together. Silas Kane and Sarah Brennan. I saw the child born. I helped bury Sarah when she died 3 days later. Gant snorted. You believe in Indian? They'll say anything for white man's money? Red Hawk didn't look at him, just kept his eyes on Thatcher. I watched that woman die calling his name. I watched her daughter grow up in poverty while he built an empire. That child out at his ranch is his blood. The spirits know it. I know it. Can you prove it? Thatcher asked. I can testify to what I saw. That's not proof. That's memory. And memory 30 years old at that. Silas stepped forward. Judge, I'm not asking for mercy. I'm asking for justice. Justice. Thatcher's laugh was bitter. Justice would have been you staying with Sarah Brennan. Justice would have been you raising your daughter. You want mercy, Mr. Kane. And the law doesn't grant mercy to cowards 30 years after the fact. The words hit like fists. I was 28, Silas said quietly. Broke. Desperate. She told me she was pregnant, and all I could see was everything I'd never have. The cattle drive was heading north, 5 years of hard work, real money. I told her I'd come back, but you didn't. No, I didn't. Why? Silas looked at his hands, calloused, scarred, still strong. Built everything with these hands except the one thing that mattered. Because I was afraid. Afraid of being poor forever. Afraid of failing. Afraid of... He stopped, started again. I convinced myself she'd be better off, that I'd send money once I made it, that she'd understand. Did you? Did I what? Send money. No. Did you ever check on her, on your daughter? No. Did you even ask if they were alive? No. The silence was a living thing. Thatcher's face could have been carved from granite. Mr. Kane, I've been a judge for 23 years. I've seen men lie, cheat, steal, kill, but I've rarely seen cowardice so pure it killed 2 generations. He gathered his papers. The child will be returned to Gant and Pike tomorrow morning. You will pay a $500 fine for interference with contract labor. If you resist, I'll have the marshal arrest you. Are we clear? You're sending her back to chains. I'm upholding the law. What these men do with their legally contracted labor is their business, and the law's wrong. Then petition the territorial legislature. But today, in this room, the law stands. Gant smiled. Pike cracked his knuckles. The marshal looked uncomfortable but didn't move. Silas stood there. Empire crumbling, walls falling, 30 years of careful construction reduced to dust. Judge Thatcher, he said softly. I've spent my whole life believing money could fix anything. That if I was rich enough, strong enough, I could outrun my mistakes. I built 40,000 acres on that lie. And I was wrong, dead wrong, but I'm not wrong about this. That child deserves better than chains, better than me, better than this. Thatcher's face didn't change. Tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock. Bring the girl, or I'll send the marshal to get her. We're done here. Silas walked out into cold October sunlight. Cole was waiting by the horses. How bad? They're taking her tomorrow. Jesus. Cole looked sick. What are you going to do? Silas stared down the street. This town he'd helped build, these people who smiled at his money and whispered about his solitude. 30 years of respect, bought with gold. I'm going to do what I should have done 30 years ago, which is the right thing, even if it destroys me. He swung into the saddle. The leather creaked. The horse shifted, sensing his mood. Cole, when they come for her tomorrow. Yeah? Don't try to stop them. You've got a future. Don't throw it away for my past. Cole's jaw set. With respect, boss, that's my decision. They rode back to the ranch in silence, the weight of tomorrow pressing down like winter sky. Late afternoon. The ranch. The house looked different when Silas rode up. Same 14 rooms. Same high ceilings. But now there was smoke from the kitchen, lamplight in the windows, the sound of a child's voice asking Mrs. Chin something about flower, life. After 30 years of silence, there was finally life in these walls. And tomorrow they'd take it away. He dismounted slowly, legs heavy, tied his horse, stood in the yard, looking at his empire, the barns, the stables, the endless fences stretching to mountains, all of it built on the bones of one good woman and the daughter he'd never claimed. The door opened. Eliza stood there in her borrowed dress, hair braided, face scrubbed clean. The swelling around her eye had gone down some. She smiled. Small, uncertain, the first real smile he'd seen from her. Mrs. Chen taught me how to make bread. Want to see? Something in his chest cracked clean through. In a minute, child. She saw his face. The smile died. What happened? Nothing. I'm just tired. You're lying. 9 years old, and she could read him like a ledger book. He walked past her into the house, into his study, closed the door, stood there in the dark. His hands shook. Cole found him 20 minutes later, sitting at his desk, staring at nothing. Boss, they're coming tomorrow at dawn. Marshal, judge, the contractors, I got word from town. Silas didn't look up. They'll bring a warrant, federal backing. If we resist, I know. What are we going to do? I don't know, Cole. I built all this. He gestured at the room, the house, the world outside. 40,000 acres. 3,000 head of cattle. More money than my father saw in his whole life. And none of it means a goddamn thing. Cole shifted his weight. You did your best in that courtroom. My best was 30 years too late. A soft knock. Mrs. Chen's voice through the door. Mr. Kane? The child made bread. She wants you to have first piece. Silas put his face in his hands. After a long moment, he stood, straightened his vest, walked out to face the one person in the world he couldn't lie to. Evening, Eliza sat by the fireplace, the oil lantern burning beside her, a plate with fresh bread on her lap. She'd been waiting. It's still warm, she said. Mrs. Chen said bread helps everything. He sat on the floor beside her, back against the hearthstones, and took the bread she offered. It was lumpy, misshapen, perfect. Thank you. She watched him eat, didn't touch her own piece. Just waited, finally. They're coming for me tomorrow, aren't they? No point lying. Yes. 'Cause you couldn't prove I'm your blood. Yes, she nodded, like she'd expected it. Mama used to say the law don't care about truth. Just about what you can prove. Yeah, your mama was right about a lot of things. Are you going to let them take me? The question was asked so calmly. No tears, no begging. Just a child who'd learned early that the world was cruel and hope was expensive. No, he said. I'm going to fight, but I need you to understand something. I'll go back to the chains. Not if I have any say. But you don't, the judge said. Silas set down the bread, turned to face her. Eliza, I need to tell you about your grandmother, about Sarah. Okay. And so he did. Told her everything. How they met. Sarah working in a boarding house. Him a ranch hand with nothing but dreams. 3 months of stolen moments, laughter in the dark, promises made under stars, the pregnancy, his panic. The cattle drive north, the choice he made. I loved her, he said quietly, and I was too afraid to stay. Why? I thought love meant being trapped. I thought money would make me free. He looked at his hands. I was wrong about everything that mattered. Do you think she forgave you? The question hit him like a bullet. I don't know. I hope so. But I never gave her the chance to tell me. Eliza was quiet for a long time. Then, Mama told me once that Grandma Sarah died saying your name. She said it wasn't angry, just sad. Silas closed his eyes. 30 years, and the pain was fresh as yesterday. I'm sorry, he whispered. I'm so goddamn sorry. For what? For all of it. For leaving Sarah, for never checking on your mother, for not finding you sooner, for being too late to... His voice broke. Eliza reached out, small hand on his arm. You found me. That counts for something. Not enough. Maybe. But it's more than nobody. They sat in silence, fire crackling, wind howling outside, the lantern flame dancing between them like a living thing. Mr. Kane? Yes. I'm glad it was you who found me. He looked at her. This child who should hate him, who had every right to curse his name. Instead, she sat there offering forgiveness he didn't deserve. Why? Because you kept your promise. You came back for me, even if it was the wrong me. She paused. That's more than most people do. And the tears came then, silent, wrenching, 30 years of them. She didn't pull away. Just sat there, 9 years old, holding the hand of a man who'd failed everyone he'd ever loved. Midnight, Silas stood on the porch, watching stars wheel overhead. Cold wind cutting through his shirt. He'd given up on sleep. Cole came out, handed him coffee. They stood in silence. I'll stand with you tomorrow, Cole said finally, when they come. You'll lose your job, maybe worse. Don't care. You should. Boss, you hired me when I had nothing. Confederate deserter with a price on my head and nowhere to go. You didn't ask questions. Just said work hard and we'll call it square. I've been square for 8 years. Figure I owe you one last stand. Silas looked at him, this man who'd become more family than employee. You don't owe me anything. That's not how loyalty works. The door opened. Mrs. Chin appeared, shawl wrapped tight. The child cannot sleep. She is afraid you will disappear. I'm right here. She needs to see you. Silas went inside. Found Eliza in the guest room, blanket pulled to her chin, lamplight casting shadows. Can't sleep? She shook her head. Me neither. Will you stay, just until I fall asleep? He pulled the chair close. Sat. I'll stay all night if you need. What if they hurt you tomorrow, when you try to stop them? Then they hurt me. That's not fair. No, but fair stopped mattering a long time ago. She was quiet, then Sire, Kane, do you believe in God? Strange question from a child who'd been chained in the dark. I don't know anymore. Do you? Mama said God gives us people when we need them most. And if he takes them away, maybe that's when we need them even more. To remember. To know someone cared. The wisdom in those words. From a 9-year-old who'd seen more darkness than most men, nearly destroyed him. Your mama raised you right. She tried, died trying. I won't. Promise? He'd learned the cost of promises, learned that words were easy and keeping them was blood. But looking at her face in the lamplight, he couldn't give her anything less than truth. I promise I will do everything in my power to keep you safe, even if it costs me everything. That's a big promise. Yes, but I mean it. She studied him, then nodded, satisfied. Okay, I believe you. Within minutes, her breathing evened out. Sleep took her, merciful and brief. Silas sat watching her in the lamplight. This child who was Sarah's blood, his blood, the last good thing he'd ever helped make. Even by accident. The clock struck 1, 2, 3. Cole appeared in the doorway, rifle in hand. Boss, riders coming. Silas stood. How many? 6, maybe 7. They're early. They don't want trouble. Want to get it done quick. Silas looked down at Eliza, still sleeping, decided. Let them come. Dawn, the porch. The riders came up the road in gray pre-dawn light. Marshall first, then Judge Thatcher, then Gant and Pike with 3 hired men behind them. Show of force. Silas met them on the porch. Cole beside him, rifle across his arms. Not raised, not threatening, just present. Mrs. Chen stood in the doorway, silent witness. Red Hawk appeared from nowhere, 12 Lakota men with him. They formed a line behind Silas, not warriors. Just men, fathers, grandfathers, standing. The marshal reined up. Mr. Kane, don't make this harder than it needs to be. She's a child. She's contracted labor. Judge Thatcher's ruled. I got federal authority to enforce. Thatcher spoke from his horse. Kane, you're out of moves. Give up the girl or face federal charges. Silas looked at Gant, sitting there grinning, tobacco juice dark on his chin. This man would chain her again, beat her, work her until there was nothing left. No, Silas said. No? The marshal's hand moved toward his gun. Cole's rifle shifted. Not much, just enough. Red Hawk's men stepped closer, silent, solid. The hired guns behind Gant tensed. This could turn bloody fast. Then a small voice from the doorway. Stop. Everyone turned. Eliza stood there, blanket around her shoulders, barefoot in her nightdress. The iron shackle still circled her ankle. Don't hurt him, she said. Please, I'll go. No. Silas moved toward her. Eliza, I won't let you die for me. Tears on her face now. You're the only person who ever kept a promise. I won't let them take that. The simplicity of it. The terrible grace. Silas knelt in front of her, both hands on her shoulders. I'm not giving up. You don't have a choice. There's always a choice. Not one that doesn't kill you. He looked into her eyes, Sarah's eyes, young and old at once. And for the first time in 30 years, Silas Kane knew exactly who he was and what he had to do. Eliza, he said quietly. Do you trust me? She nodded. Then trust me now. Go inside with Mrs. Chen. Wait. But, please. She searched his face, found something there that made her nod, turned, walked inside. Silas stood, faced the marshal, the judge, the men who held the law. Gentlemen, he said, I have a proposition. A proposition? Judge Thatcher's voice carried frost. You're out of bargaining chips, Kane. Maybe, but you'll want to hear this. Silas looked at the marshal. Give me 1 hour, just one, to put my affairs in order. You trying to run? Where would I go? You've got 6 men and federal authority. Silas gestured at his land. My whole life is here. I'm not running. The marshal looked at Thatcher. The judge considered, eyes hard. 1 hour, but my men stay here. You try anything, we come through that door. Understood. Silas turned, walked inside. The door closed behind him. The study. He stood at his desk in the gray dawn light. Didn't sit, couldn't. Everything he'd built stared back at him from these walls. Deed papers, stock certificates, maps of his empire, 30 years of careful accumulation, all of it worthless. He opened the bottom drawer, pulled out his will. Written 5 years ago, when he'd almost died from pneumonia. Everything to charity. No family to leave it to. He'd been so certain he was alone. Tore it in half. Mrs. Chen appeared in the doorway, silent as always. Bring me paper, he said. Clean sheets and ink. She brought them, set them on the desk, started to leave. Mrs. Chen, she paused. Thank you. For everything. For 10 years of not asking questions I couldn't answer. She bowed slightly. You are a good man who forgot how to be good. That child reminded you. That is enough. When she left, Silas sat down and began to write. The guest room. Eliza sat on the bed, still wrapped in the blanket. Mrs. Chen had brought her breakfast, but it sat untouched. Cole knocked softly. Can I come in? She nodded. He sat in the chair, big hands on his knees. Your granddad, he stopped. Mr. Kane, he's trying to fix this. He can't fix it. The law says I belong to those men. The law's been wrong before. Not when judges say it isn't. Cole pulled something from his pocket, a small wooden horse, the one he'd carved for her. You forgot this in the main room. She took it, traced the carved mane with one finger. You made it look brave. Horses are brave. They run even when they're scared. Is Mr. Kane scared? Probably, but he's running anyway. Toward you instead of away. She looked at the wooden horse in her palm. My mama had something like this. A bird. She said her mama carved it when she was pregnant. Said it was supposed to fly somewhere better. Did it? No, Mama died holding it. I gave it to Mr. Kane so he'd remember me. He doesn't need wood to remember you, child. I know, but it helps. When people leave, you want something to hold on to. Cole's throat worked. He's not leaving you. Everyone leaves, one way or another. The porch. 30 minutes later, Red Hawk found Silas standing at the railing, staring at the mountains. You have a plan, the old man said. Not a question. Yes. Will it work? I don't know. Will it cost you everything? Yes, Red Hawk nodded. Then it is the right plan. They stood in silence. Wind moving through dry grass, first light touching the peaks. I never thanked you, Silas said, for keeping Sarah's memory, for testifying. I did not do it for you. Oh, I did it for her, and for the child. I know. But you are welcome anyway. More silence, comfortable, The kind that came from understanding. The spirits are satisfied now, Red Hawk said finally. You have stopped running. 30 years too late. The spirits do not count years like white men count gold. They count choices, and you are choosing. Am I choosing right? Does it feel right? Silas thought about Eliza's face in the lamplight, her small hand on his arm, the words, "You found me. That counts for something." Yes, he said. It feels right. Then it is. Inside. The final preparations. Silas gathered them all. Cole, Mrs. Chen, Red Hawk, Eliza. They stood in the main room, morning light slanting through windows. He held papers in his hand. New documents, written in the gray hour before dawn. I need witnesses, he said, for what I'm about to do. What are you going to do? Eliza asked, voice small. He knelt in front of her, eye level, man to child, failure to last chance. I'm going to make you safe, permanently, no matter what it costs. How? By giving them what they want and taking what they can't have. She didn't understand. Too young, too much hurt. He pulled the small carved bird from his pocket, the one she'd given him, placed it in her palm. You keep this, always, to remember your mama, your grandma Sarah, and me. You're talking like goodbye. I'm talking like hello to the life you deserve. He stood, looked at Cole. You'll take care of her if things go bad? With my life? Mrs. Chen? Of course. Red Hawk? The Lakota will watch over her. She is one of ours now. Silas nodded, folded the papers, put them in his coat pocket. All right then. He looked at the clock. Time's up. The porch again. The marshal straightened when Silas emerged. Your hour's done. I know. You ready to hand over the girl? No, but I'm ready to talk. Silas walked down the steps, stood in the yard, facing Judge Thatcher. You said I have no legal claim to that child. Correct. And you said, unless I can prove blood relation or legal guardianship, she goes back to her contract. Those are the facts. What if I could prove it, right now? Would you rule differently? Thatcher's eyes narrowed. Prove what? Paternity? You said yourself you have no evidence. I didn't, but I do now. And from his coat he pulled an envelope. Old, water-stained, yellowed with age. Red Hawk gave this to me last night. He's been holding it for 30 years. He opened it. Inside, a daguerreotype photograph. Faded, but clear. A young man and a pregnant woman. His arm around her. Her hand on her belly. On the back, in careful script, Silas and Sarah, May 1865. Our child comes. Thatcher took it, studied it. His face revealed nothing. This proves you knew Sarah Brennan. It doesn't prove paternity of Mary Brennan. No, but it proves intention, acknowledgement, witness. Silas gestured to Red Hawk. He testified. Now there's evidence. Corroboration. It's still not enough. Then I'll give you enough. Silas pulled out the new papers, unfolded them. His hand didn't shake. I'm prepared to make the following offer, Judge Thatcher. In exchange for legal custody of Eliza Brennan, named as my granddaughter. The sun broke over the mountains behind him, gold light flooding the valley. He took a breath. I offer everything. Everything? Judge Thatcher's voice was flat, disbelieving. Everything. Silas held the papers steady. Behind him, through the window, he could see Eliza's face pressed to the glass, watching, always watching. I will transfer 50% of my land holdings, 20,000 acres, to a territorial trust for orphans, widows, children like Eliza who fall through the cracks of law. Gant straightened in his saddle. That's $200,000 in assessed value, give or take. Silas didn't look at him, kept his eyes on Thatcher. I'll pay the girl's inherited debt in full. $340 principal, plus 10% interest compounded annually over 10 years. Call it $850 total. Pike's eyes went wide. That was real money to men like them. I'll also make a public confession, on record, witnessed, that I abandoned Sarah Brennan in 1865, that Mary Brennan was my daughter, unacknowledged and unsupported, that every dollar I made came at the cost of their suffering. You'd destroy your own reputation? Thatcher asked. I already did that, 30 years ago. I'm just admitting it now. Cole shifted behind him, silent support. And one more thing. Silas's voice dropped, quieter, final. I will serve time. Whatever sentence you deem appropriate for abandonment, negligence, moral failure, I'll serve it in territorial prison, no appeal, no clemency. The yard went silent, even the wind died. Gant recovered first. You're confessing to crimes that don't exist? There's no law against leaving a woman. There's moral law, Silas said. And I'm guilty under it. Thatcher dismounted, slowly. Walked towards Silas, boots crunching frost. He took the papers, read them, every word. His face revealed nothing. Finally, Mr. Kane, I've been a judge for 23 years. I've seen bribes. I've seen threats. I've never seen a man volunteer for his own destruction. It's not destruction. It's payment. For what? For being a coward when it mattered most. Thatcher looked at the photograph again. Young Silas, young Sarah, the promise of a child. This doesn't erase what you did. I know, nothing can. But maybe it can give that girl a chance at something better than chains. Gant pushed his horse forward. Judge, you can't seriously consider this. The law says... I know what the law says. Thatcher's voice cut like steel. The law also says I have discretion in matters of familial dispute, provided there's evidence of blood relation and willingness to provide support. But, Mr. Gant, you will receive full payment of the debt. $850, more than you paid. Plus you're released from obligation to house and feed the child. That's profit, not loss. She's contracted labor for 10 years. She's a 9-year-old girl with a grandfather willing to give up half his fortune to keep her safe. Thatcher's face was stone. Tell me, Mr. Gant, what's your real concern here? Justice? Or the fact that you're losing free labor? Pike opened his mouth, closed it. The marshal spoke up. Judge, legally speaking, if Mr. Kane can prove blood relation and provide adequate restitution, I know the law, Marshal. But Thatcher turned back to Silas. You understand what you're offering? 50% of your assets. Public shame. Prison time. Yes. Why? You've lived 30 years without acknowledging this debt. You could live 30 more. Silas looked past him, at the window, at Eliza's face. No, he said quietly. I couldn't. Thatcher walked away, paced the yard. The other men watched, waiting. Cole's hand tightened on his rifle. Red Hawk stood still as stone. The Lakota men behind him barely breathed. Finally, Thatcher turned. On the evidence of the photograph, the testimony of witnesses, and Mr. Kane's public acknowledgement of paternity, he paused. I rule that Eliza Brennan is the legal granddaughter of Silas Kane and is hereby released from all debt, obligation to Gant and Pike. Gant started to protest. Thatcher held up a hand. However, his voice went cold. Mr. Kane, you will pay all debts and transfers as stated. You will deed the land immediately, and you will serve 90 days in territorial prison for abandonment and child neglect by proxy. 90 days? The marshal looked surprised. He's confessing to moral crimes with no legal precedent. I'm setting precedent. 90 days, non-negotiable. I accept, Silas said. And if you ever harm that child, if she suffers one moment of cruelty under your care, I will personally see you hang. Are we clear? Crystal. Thatcher looked at Gant and Pike. You'll be paid today, full amount. Now get off this land. This is bullshit. That's contempt of court. Add another $100 to your fine, Mr. Gant. Leave. Now. They left, cursing, defeated, but paid. The marshal approached Silas. I'll need to take you into custody for processing. I understand. You'll have 3 weeks to settle your affairs. Report to the territorial prison in Laramie by November 20th. Silas nodded. The marshal pulled out handcuffs, iron, cold. The click of them closing around Silas's wrists echoed in the morning air. Cole stepped forward. Marshal. It's all right, Silas said. It's right. The door burst open. Eliza ran out, barefoot in her nightdress, blanket trailing behind her. No, you can't take him. Mrs. Chen tried to catch her, but she was too fast. She crashed into Silas, wrapped her arms around his waist. The iron shackle on her ankle caught the light. Eliza, Silas's voice cracked. You said you wouldn't leave. I'm not leaving. I'm coming back. 90 days. That's leaving. He knelt down, handcuffs clinking, looked her in the eye. Listen to me. I have to do this. To make it right. To make sure you're safe. Forever. I don't want safe if you're gone. Yes, you do. You just don't know it yet. She cried then, real tears, not silent ones, the kind that came from a heart that was learning to feel again. He couldn't hold her, not with his hands bound, so he just pressed his forehead to hers. 90 days. Then I'm home. I promise. You can't promise. The law can change. They can keep you. Eliza, his voice firm, steady. I have kept one promise in my life. The promise I made to you in that shack, that you wouldn't die while I was breathing. I'm keeping that promise. Every day, even from prison. She pulled back, looked at his face, found something there that steadied her. Mrs. Chin came forward gently. Come, child, let him go. But Eliza shook her head, pulled off the blanket. His wool blanket, the one he'd wrapped her in that first day. Take this. She draped it over his shoulders. So you're not cold. The reversal hit him like a fist. She was protecting him now. You need it. You need it more. He couldn't argue, couldn't speak. Cole helped him stand. The blanket hung around his shoulders like a king's robe, or a beggar's. The marshal took his arm. Time to go. As they walked toward the wagon, Silas looked back once. Eliza stood on the porch, Mrs. Chin's hand on her shoulder. Cole beside them, Red Hawk and his men forming a wall of protection. His family, the one he'd never known he had. The one that had waited 30 years for him to come home. First snow began to fall, soft, white, clean, covering the dead grass, the old tracks, the path that had led him to this moment. The marshal helped him into the wagon, sat beside him, took up the reins. For what it's worth, the marshal said quietly, I think you did right. 90 days, Silas said, watching the ranch grow smaller. I can do 90 days. Cole stepped into the road, called out, Boss, we'll keep the lantern burning. Silas looked back. Eliza was holding it now, the oil lantern, lifted high, flame, dancing in morning light. He smiled. For the first time in 30 years, a real smile. Not bitter, not broken, just free. Keep it lit, he called back. I'll see it from Laramie. The wagon rolled on. The snow fell harder. The ranch disappeared behind white curtains, but the light kept burning. He could still see it, even when he couldn't. 3 weeks before prison, November 1st, 19th, 1895. The first thing Silas did when the marshal removed the handcuffs was hold Eliza. No words, just wrapped his arms around her and breathed. She clung to him like he was the only solid thing in a tilting world. 90 days, she whispered against his chest. That's how long? 3 months. I'll be back before spring. Promise? Promise. The 3 weeks became a lifetime compressed. Silas worked 16-hour days settling his affairs. Lawyers from Cheyenne, land transfers, deed paperwork. Every signature felt like setting down weight he'd carried too long. 20,000 acres to the Territorial Trust. Gone, but not lost. $850 to Gant and Pike. Delivered by Cole, paid with witnesses. The look on their faces when they realized they'd gotten their money but lost their victory. The rest? The remaining 20,000 acres, the cattle, the house he signed over to Eliza Brennan Kane, his granddaughter, legal, recorded, permanent. Judge Thatcher witnessed it himself. You're making her one of the richest children in Wyoming territory. I'm giving her what I should have given her grandmother. It won't bring them back. No, but maybe it'll let them rest. The arrangements, Mrs. Chin would stay as guardian during his absence. The household ran on her competence anyway. Cole would manage the ranch. He knew cattle, knew men, knew how to keep wolves, both animal and human, at bay. Red Hawk and the Lakota families would watch over the property. Not as workers, as family. Doc Farrow would visit weekly, check Eliza's healing ankle. The shackle had been cut off finally, but the scar remained. Would always remain. And Miss Abigail Marsh, 32, schoolteacher from Denver, references impeccable, hired to tutor Eliza 5 days a week. I never went to school, Eliza said when she met her. Then we'll start at the beginning, Miss Abigail replied. Kind eyes, patient voice, evening lessons. But it was Silas who taught her to read first. Every night after dinner, they sat by the fireplace, the oil lantern between them, working through McGuffey's first reader. She learned fast, hungry for words, like they were food after starvation. The cat sat, she read slowly, finger tracking under letters. On the mat, he prompted. On the mat. She looked up, beaming. I read a whole sentence. You did? Can we read another book? A real one. He brought down his mother's copy of Grimm's fairy tales. German stories translated to English, leather binding worn soft. Which one? He asked. The saddest. Why the saddest? Because sad stories teach you how to be brave. And at 9 years old, she understood more than he had at 58. They read The Goose Girl, a princess stripped of her name, forced to tend geese, her true identity stolen. In the end, truth revealed, justice done. That's me, Eliza whispered when he finished. What do you mean? I was nobody, with no name that mattered. You gave me my name back. He had to look away, couldn't let her see his face. The letter 2 weeks before prison, he wrote her a letter, sealed it, gave it to Mrs. Chen. When she's 16, not before. What does it say? Everything I should have told Sarah. Everything I couldn't tell Mary. Everything I need her to know when she's old enough to understand forgiveness. Mrs. Chen took it, locked it in her trunk. She will read it, and she will understand. Cole's gift. Cole presented Eliza with a carved wooden horse the night before Silas left. So you remember you belong to the ranch now, he said. She held it carefully. What should I name it? You tell me. She thought. Then, Brave, because it doesn't look scared. Cole's throat worked. Brave it is. Red Hawk's blessing. The old chief came the final evening, brought a beaded bracelet, red and white, traditional Lakota pattern. For protection, he said, tying it around her wrist. And to remember, you are not alone. You have two families now, blood family. He gestured to Silas. And chosen family. He gestured to himself, to Mrs. Chen, to Cole. How do I say thank you in Lakota? Eliza asked. Pilamaya. Pilamaya? Close enough. She hugged him, surprised him. He stood stiff for a moment, then his weathered hand came up to rest on her head. The spirits are pleased, he said quietly. The circle closes. The debt is paid. The lantern. Symbol number 3. The night before prison, Silas couldn't sleep. Found Eliza in the main room at 2 a.m, sitting cross-legged by the fireplace. The oil lantern burned beside her. Can't sleep either? He asked. She shook her head. He sat beside her. They watched the flame dance, silent. Finally, Eliza, I need you to do something for me. What? Keep this lantern burning every night until I come back. Why? So I know you're safe. So I know there's still light in the world. She touched the glass. Warm, smooth. What if it goes out? Then you light it again. What if I forget? You won't. How do you know? Because you're stronger than you think you are. Stronger than me. Stronger than anyone I've ever known. She looked at him. I'm not strong. I couldn't even break my own chains. No, but you survived them. That's a different kind of strength. She considered this, then nodded. Okay, I'll keep it lit. Every single night. Thank you. Mr. Kane, yes? When you come back, can I call you Grandpa? The word hit him like sunlight after 30 years of darkness. Yes, he whispered. I'd like that very much. Morning, November 20th, 1895. The marshal came at dawn, respectful now. Not harsh, Silas was ready, 1 bag. Simple clothes, the wool blanket folded inside. Eliza stood on the porch, holding the lantern even though it was daylight. Holding it like a promise. He knelt in front of her one last time. 90 days. 90 days, she repeated. I'll write every week. I'll write back. Miss Abigail says my writing's getting better. Good. Neither moved. Didn't want this moment to end. Finally, Mrs. Chen spoke softly. It is time. Silas stood. The marshal approached with handcuffs. Is that necessary? Cole asked. Protocol, the marshal said, but he fastened them loose. Respectful. The iron clicked shut. Silas looked at them. The same metal that had bound Eliza's ankle, now binding his wrists, fitting. He walked to the wagon, climbed up, turned back. Eliza stood on the porch, lantern raised high even in daylight. Mrs. Chen's hand on her shoulder. Cole beside them, Red Hawk and his family forming a protective wall. Keep it burning, Silas called. I will. Eliza's voice cracked but held. The wagon rolled forward, down the road, away from everything he'd built, toward everything he was becoming. He didn't look back again. Couldn't. But he felt it. The light, still burning behind him. During the 90 days, letters came weekly, both directions. Hers, in careful script that improved with each one. Dear Grandpa, I read 3 books this week. Miss Abigail says I'm smart. Mrs. Chen taught me to cook soup. Cole let me help with the horses. Red Hawk's grandson speaks English now and we are friends. The lantern burns every night. I promise. Love Eliza, his, from prison on rough paper. Dear Eliza, I'm proud of you. Keep reading. Keep learning. The horses need you more than you know. I think about you every morning when the sun rises. 90 days feels long, but knowing you're safe makes it bearable. The blanket keeps me warm. Thank you. Love, Grandpa. The town's opinion shifted. At first, scandal, gossip, judgment, but over weeks, respect. They saw Eliza, healthy, learning, smiling sometimes. They saw the trust fund helping other families. They saw a man paying his debts with honor instead of running. Cole heard it at the feed store. Kane's doing right by that child, more than most would, and Red Hawk heard it at the trading post. Strange way to show love, but love nonetheless. The countdown. Eliza marked days on paper. Mrs. Chen showed her how. 90, 75, 60, 45, 30, 15, 7. The last week was the hardest. What if he's different? She asked Mrs. Chen. He will be. So will you. Is that bad? No, child. That is healing. February 1st, 1896. The return. Dawn broke golden cold. Eliza woke before anyone, dressed, ran to the window. A wagon on the road. Her heart stopped. Mrs. Chen appeared beside her. He is home. She didn't run at first. Just stood on the porch, watching the wagon approach, lantern still in her hands even though dawn had broken full and gold. The wagon stopped. A man climbed down, thinner, grayer, moving careful like his bones remembered cold stone floors and bad sleep. But his eyes were different, lighter somehow. like he'd set down weight that had been crushing him for 30 years. He wore the wool blanket over his shoulders, prison-issue shirt underneath, boots worn through at the heels, nothing else. Everything he'd taken with him, and everything he was bringing back. Their eyes met across 40 yards of frozen ground. Then she ran, barefoot through snow, nightdress flying, lantern forgotten on the porch rail. He dropped to his knees, hit the ground hard, didn't care, and caught her. She crashed into him and they held each other and neither spoke because words were too small for this. Mrs. Chin appeared on the porch, wiping her eyes with her apron. Cole walked up from the barn, stopped at a respectful distance, hat in hands. Red Hawk stood in the morning light, hand raised in silent blessing. Finally, Eliza pulled back enough to look at his face. "You came back. I promised." People break promises. Not this one, never this one. She touched his face, thin, bearded different, scars she didn't remember. "You look old," he laughed. Actually laughed. "I am old. But happy old, not sad old like before. You can tell the difference? Your eyes smile now." He picked her up. She was heavier than 3 months ago, solid, fed, alive, and carried her toward the house. "You're not wearing shoes," he said. "I forgot. It's snowing." I didn't care. "You'll catch cold. Then you'll have to stay and take care of me." The logic was irrefutable. Inside, morning Mrs. Chen had made breakfast. Real food, not prison rations, eggs, bacon, fresh bread, coffee so strong it could wake the dead. They sat around the table, Silas, Eliza, Mrs. Chen, Cole, Miss Abigail who'd come early. Family. Not blood, most of them, but family nonetheless. "How was prison?" Cole asked. Then immediately, "Sorry, that's a stupid question." "No, it's fair." Silas ate slowly, savoring. "It was cold, loud, boring mostly, but I met good men who'd made bad choices. Reminded me I wasn't alone in that." "Did they hurt you?" Eliza asked, worried. "No, child, I'm fine." "You're thinner." "Prison food's not like Mrs. Chen's cooking." He looked at the housekeeper. "I dreamed about your dumplings for 90 days straight." Mrs. Chen's face stayed neutral, but her eyes gleamed. "Then you eat. I make more." Eliza had saved all his letters, tied them with string, kept them under her pillow. "I read them every night," she said, "before I lit the lantern." Did you keep it burning every night?" "Every single one. Miss Abigail helped me buy more oil when we ran low." Miss Abigail nodded. She was religious about it. Wouldn't sleep until that flame was steady. "Show me," Silas said. Eliza led him to the window where she'd kept vigil. The lantern sat on the sill, glass spotless, wick trimmed perfect, oil reservoir full. "I took care of it," she said, like it was alive. Maybe it was, in a way. She looked up at him. "Can we put it somewhere special now, so it doesn't have to work so hard?" "Where do you want it?" "The mantle, above the fireplace, so it watches over everything." "That's a good place." Together they carried it, set it in the center of the mantle, stepped back, regarded their work. "There," Eliza said, satisfied. "Now it can rest." But that night she lit it anyway. Old promises died hard. Afternoon. The land. Cole took Silas on a tour, show him what had changed in 90 days. Not much. The land didn't care about human drama, just kept being land. But the trust fund had started working. 3 families moved onto parcels of the 20,000 acres. Widows with children. Men with more hope than money, people like Silas used to be. "They're good folks," Cole said. "Work hard. Pay attention. Grateful." "Good. That's what the land needed. Life on it." They rode to the old line shack. Still standing. Still empty. "Want me to tear it down?" Cole asked. Silas looked at it for a long moment. "This place where everything changed, where light found darkness, where debt became grace. No, leave it, but put a door on it that locks. And a sign." "What kind of sign?" "In memory of Sarah Brennan. May she rest in light." Cole nodded. "I'll get it made." Evening. Small miracles. Red Hawk's grandson, Little Wolf, came to play. Eliza showed him her books. They sat on the floor, racing through McGuffey's readers, competing to see who could sound out words faster. The fox jumped over. Eliza read. "The lazy dog," Little Wolf finished. They collapsed in giggles. Silas watched from his chair, coffee cooling in his hands. When was the last time he'd heard a child laugh in this house? Never. Not in 30 years. Mrs. Chen brought pie. Apple, still warm. "You're spoiling us," Silas said. "You deserve spoil. Is good spoil." There's good spoiling?" "For 90 days you eat prison food. Now you eat love. Is different." She was right. Everything tasted like love now. Sunset. They sat on the porch. Silas in the rocking chair he'd never used. Eliza on the steps. blanket around both of them, watching light die on the mountains. Grandpa? First time she'd said it to his face. The word felt like coming home. Yes? Are you happy now? He considered. 30 years of considering what happiness meant, getting it wrong every time. Yes, he said. I think I am. Even though you lost half your land and went to prison and everyone knows what you did? Especially because of that. That doesn't make sense. I know, but it's true anyway. He pulled the blanket tighter around them. For 30 years, I thought happiness meant having more. More land, more money, more respect. Turns out it means having enough, and I've got enough now. What's enough? He looked at her. This child who'd been chained in darkness and now sat reading books and laughing with friends. This, he said simply. You, this porch, that sunset, enough. She leaned against his leg, warm, solid. Real. I'm glad you found me, she whispered. Me too, little one. Me too. First stars appeared. The temperature dropped. Cole came out, lit the porch lanterns without asking. Boss, I'm heading to the bunkhouse. Anything you need? No, Cole. Thank you for everything. Just doing my job. Your job doesn't include 90 days of carrying this place alone. That was friendship. Cole's face flushed. Well, all right then. He tipped his hat, walked away. Red Hawk appeared from the darkness, the way he did. The spirits are satisfied, he said. You mentioned that before. Now it is true. The circle is complete. The debt is paid. The child is home. He paused. And so are you. I never left. You left 30 years ago. Today you came back. Red Hawk melted into the night. Eliza yawned, tried to hide it, failed. Bedtime, Silas said. Not yet. I want to stay up. What if you disappear? I won't. Promise? I promise. Now come on, morning comes early on a ranch. He carried her inside. She was nearly too big for it now, growing fast. But she wrapped her arms around his neck like she was 5. At her door, good night, Grandpa. Good night, Eliza. I love you. First time, 3 words, tiny, enormous. His voice cracked. I love you too. 3 weeks later, late February evening, the porch, 2 figures in the last light, grandfather and granddaughter, side by side on the top step, watching the valley turn purple with dusk. The lantern burned between them on the rail, not for necessity now, for memory, for promise kept. Eliza's hands worked beaded cord. Red Hawk's wife teaching her the patterns, over, under, pull tight. Simple, meditative. Her ankle scar caught the light when she shifted. Permanent, a map of where she'd been. Silas read aloud from her favorite book. The truth will out, and those who suffered shall be crowned. And he closed it, set it aside. On the windowsill behind them, 2 carved wooden birds faced each other. The one Sarah made 40 years ago, worn smooth by generations of holding. The one Silas carved in prison with a borrowed knife. Rough but honest. They didn't match. They didn't need to. Snow was melting, first green showing through on the south slopes. The creek running again after winter silence. Spring coming, life returning. Cole rode in from the north pasture, waved. They waved back. He disappeared into the barn, whistling something tuneless and content. Mrs. Chen opened the door. Dinner soon. Thank you, Silas said. The door closed soft. Eliza leaned against his shoulder. He put his arm around her. The blanket, covered them both. No words now, just breathing. Just being. The lantern flame danced in rising wind. Steady, sure, fed by careful hands and kept promises. Somewhere in the valley, a coyote called. Another answered. The ancient conversation of wild things who knew their place in the world. The sun touched the mountain peaks, gold fire, then gone. Stars appeared, 1, 2, a dozen, a sky full. Eliza whispered, Is this what peace feels like? Silas closed his eyes. Yes. The lantern burned. The birds watched, the valley held them, and for the first time in 30 years, Silas Kane, grandfather, rancher, redeemed man, and felt the weight lift. Not gone, never gone, but carried different now, together. Some debts can only be paid with everything, and some mercies can only be given by those who have nothing left to lose.